Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling. And man, I really appreciate you guys coming by the channel to spend some time with me. I know we're all busy during the daytime and don't have a lot of time to watch YouTube videos, so really appreciate you guys tuning in to my channel here. Definitely grateful for that. Guys, today we're going to have a little mini seminar. I'm going to sort of explain to you why bass fishing gets tougher as the summer goes on. Normally, from what my experience has been in bass fishing, starts to get tough towards the mid to the end of June. It gets a little tougher in July. It gets a little tougher in August, and it tops off by getting really tough the first week of September, like right before fall starts. So I'm going to sort of explain to you guys, a little bit why that happens and maybe some techniques that you can use to overcome that toughness a little bit. I'm also, guys, just a quick invitation out there. You guys may have heard me talk about it, about the Tackle Warehouse Summer Kickoff Sale. Just want to invite you guys to go check out my Tackle Warehouse link. If you want to get some baits there, using that link's a good way to support the channel. And one suggestion I'll give you guys is this little Megabass S-Crank 1.2, which is the smallest square bill they make. This is one of my favorite summertime lures. So I'll link all this stuff in the description of the video. Much appreciated with that. Okay, guys. Ever since I've been fishing here, I've sort of been a student of the fish and sort of studying a little bit about the fish personality and mood. And you hear me talk a lot about that on the channel, is the mood and the personality of the fish. And that changes every single month. And those changes are affected by a lot of different stuff. Water temperatures, water clarity, water level, the increasing or the decreasing daylight hours we have, oxygen content levels, thermoclines. There's a lot of different things that affect their mood and behavior. In the summertime, it's the toughest time to catch fish. I think specifically late July through early September, it's the toughest month and a half in the whole year to fish. I'd rather fish in the dead of winter. I wouldn't, comfortable wise, I wouldn't. I'd rather fish in the summertime in shorts and a t-shirt, but as far as catching fish, it gets really tough. Now, there's a couple of different things that happen here. June is normally pretty decent fishing month because you still have fish moving out. There's a lot of fish moving out into the deep water hard structures that people catch. There's still quite a few fish shallow. Thermoclines haven't really been formed on most lakes. Therefore, the fish can use a diversity of different depths. They can use deep water, they can suspend, they can use shallow water. But what happens as July rolls around, a lot of lakes start to form a thermocline. And that thermocline, it forms anywhere between 15 to 30 foot deep, depending upon the lake structure and the water clarity that you have. And once you have that thermocline form, that's when fishing starts to get tough because you start to lose a lot of your oxygen in a little bit deeper water. So those fish that normally were out on some of those hard structure areas, they're not there on the bottom like they would be deep. They tend to start suspending, they tend to start scattering a little bit. You can still catch them on the bottom, but not as deep. There's some fish up shallow, but those fish are getting a little bit more finicky and less aggressive because the oxygen contents are starting to fluctuate a little bit. And it just starts to get tougher. And I think one of the reasons that fishing is really tough in the summertime of the year during the day is, you've heard me talk about this before, I think most of the bass feed actively at night in the summertime. In fact, I know they do. They're opportunistic, don't get me wrong. If they see a chance to ambush prey and get a meal, they're going to take advantage of that. But overall, they're not actively feeding during the daytime. So therefore, you have to trigger these fish into biting by other means from just, trying to get them to bite something because they're hungry. You have to create them, you get them to bite from a reaction standpoint, curiosity, anger, competition, all that type of stuff. And then as the summer goes on and it gets hotter and hotter and hotter and the water temperature warms up, normally what you have in association with that maxed out water temperature is the water levels start to fall a little bit. And as the water level falls and as it gets warmer and as the thermocline gets more defined, you have fish that they tend not to group up like they did earlier in the year, and they really disperse and scatter. Prime example, let's look at Table Rock Lake down here where I fish. Now, in August or September or July, you're apt to catch some fish on the bottom in 15 or 20 foot of water. You're apt to catch them roaming around out in the middle of the lake. If you happen to be a spotlighter, you can probably target those fish. A lot of fish suspend because you'll see them busting out in the middle of the lake. Those fish are roaming out there everywhere, just chasing shad. They're nomadic. Some of them are on the surface, some of them are down 15 or 20 feet. Since the thermocline is formed, you have a lot more fish suspending. And then also you have half of the fish in the lake that are scattered throughout, the lake on shallow structures. Some of the fish live shallow all summer long, chasing and feeding on bluegill that are spawning, bluegill and black perch and pumpkin seeds, living in that shallow water. Some fish are living in shallow water in the off-colored water, not necessarily targeting those perch, but just using the available shallow cover. So you have a lot of different fish all over the lake doing different things. So overall, the suggestion that I'm going to make to you guys as far as how to catch them, during that tough period of the summertime is, obviously every single lake is different as far as how it's laid out. But one of the big pieces of advice I'll give you, unless you are just a hardcore, spotlighter, which this is not applicable to your way of fishing, but if you're just fishing traditional real bass fishing means, two things important. Number one, fish baits that create a reaction strike. So therefore, I like to fish fast moving baits, crankbaits, chatterbaits, maybe a small spinnerbait, lipless crankbait, and you need to go small. That's why I was talking about like this Megabass 1.2. It's a little, inch and a half long crankbait. You're gonna find that in the months between like July and early September, that it's very difficult to catch fish on a big lure unless you're fishing maybe like a big worm or something, like a 10 or 12 inch worm out on brush piles, but that's still not a large profile lure. A worm is a small diameter lure, even though it's long. Big baits traditionally just don't work that good in the summer. So downsize your lure size. Go to, if you're fishing a topwater, use like a 1/4 ounce buzz bait, a small profile, use a little chugger or something like that. Small crankbaits, 1/4 ounce spinner baits, just downsize. That's gonna catch you a lot more fish. If you're fishing out on points, go to something like a Ned rig or like a little 2.5 inch swim bait. You're gonna catch a lot more fish with that. Overall, the piece of advice I would give you to quickly and most consistently catch fish all through that tough period is find the dirtiest water that you can find in the lake, creek arms, river arms, or something like that, and target whatever shallow cover is available with some type of a reaction bait. My favorite way to fish by far in the tough periods of the summer is to concentrate on that dirtiest water I can find and fish a small crankbait on any type of rock or wood cover. Also, fishing boat docks is really good. Boat docks are really good structures during this dog days of summer. Fish use them for shade. The bluegills are hanging around docks. A lot of fish use them. So that's two of my primary deals, guys. Small crankbaits in the dirty water, fishing boat docks if any lake has them. And of course, every lake's different. If you fish northern smallmouth, none of this stuff applies. If you're fishing in Florida, none of it applies. But most of it in the man-made impoundments throughout the country, it'll work. So anyway, that's sort of the deal. You start to see a shift a little bit. Once that water temperature starts dropping 5 or 10 degrees, like, in October specifically, things start to get a little bit better. But, just be prepared. I mean, don't feel bad if you go out there from now until September and you struggle to catch fish, because everybody does, man. It's just tough to catch them this time of year. So hope it helps out. We'll talk later.